The Mel Carmine Show begins in just 1 minute. Support the movement. Visit QFS1776.com for exclusive one-of-a-kind merch that makes a powerful statement. Protect your wealth. Cash is trash. Go to carminesgold.com and secure real assets, silver, gold, delivered anywhere in the U.S. Text Mel at 786-704-8817. Looking to acquire XRP? Minimum is $10,000 investment, and there is no limit, even up to $100 million worth. Again, text Mel with full details at 786-704-8817 and allow up to 24 hours for a response. And yes, text the same number to establish your religious irrevocable trust. Protect everything you built. You own nothing, but you control everything. And if by chance you're visiting Cape Canaveral or you are a local, visit stayingalive.com, alive with 2 E's, and recharge your body at the cellular level. The show with your host, Mel Carmine, starts right now. Well, guys, if you don't recognize him, don't feel alone, because I didn't recognize him either. He just chopped his hair off. He's got a whole new look. Maybe he's under the government witness protection program. I have no idea, but it's like, bro, did you chop your hair off? Because yes, Cosmic Origin, Jayse is here. And what's your other academy name? What's the name of your academy?
It's called Conscious Crypto Academy is my crypto school.
Perfect. Awesome. So let's get right into it, bro. I mean, look. We're in the middle of a crazy market, aren't we? Jayse, why do you think right now that the people that are drawn to XRP, what makes them different than the rest of the crew? I mean, why are they spiritually seeking XRP? And there's people that are it's got this like a cult following. People are convinced, the people that can see it, they are convinced that this is the one, this is it. They're not going anywhere. It doesn't matter if they knock down the price. Like my friend Colin O'Brien said, they're going to knock down the price down to 9 cents. I don't believe that for a second. Could he be right? Yes. Anybody could be right. I mean, look, nobody's got the crystal balls. You know what I mean? I don't either. Mm-hmm. So what do you think?
Maybe Palantir does. That's yeah. I think, what I've seen through crypto, particularly XRP, is it is a spiritual phenomena. Like, of course, there are people that are into it that are not on their spiritual awakening path. But when it comes to XRP in particular, what I've noticed is that there are so many people who are on their awakening path, and originally they don't want to get into crypto, and that's how I was in the beginning too. Like when I got in early 2020. And before that, I just knew Bitcoin, Ethereum. I didn't really know anything else, and I didn't get a good vibe about them, and I just stayed away from it because I kind of considered it all to be New World Order. And I'm seeing a lot of people in that position, and then as soon as they hear about XRP for the first time, it like lights something up in them. It creates this, this fascination or this like intuitive hit where they go, okay, there is something to that, and that's how it was for me. Like I said, I didn't like Bitcoin, I didn't like Ethereum, but then a friend told me about XRP in 2020, and it was at 17 cents. And that's that number, that I'm always like looking out for synchronistically, 17. And when I hear that number, I pay attention. So I feel like my guides, kind of showed me that. And that's when I went, all right, I'm going to look into this thing. And so I think what's going on the bigger level is, there's people that are into crypto just to get rich quick. And I would say the majority of the crypto space, particularly the Bitcoin maxis, are more so in that boat, right? And that's not to say that, they don't want to help people with that. But, a lot of those kind of people, they want to have their mansions and their Bugattis and their yachts. And that's all cool too, right? It's nothing against having nice stuff. But what I see with the XRP crowd, the people that don't know about crypto and are called to XRP, is that they're people who have like these spiritual missions that need funding. And XRP seems to be the way that God or, their divine guidance, their angels, their higher self, their spirit guides, whatever you want to call it, whatever label, seems to be guiding these particular people like you and I, and like probably a lot of the people watching this right now, who want to actually do good for the planet and do good for humanity. And I think that this is basically one of the primary ways in which we're being given this divine gift from spirit, from God, to be able to literally fund our dreams and build the new paradigm and the new earth together. And that's huge because not only is it like it's a big responsibility, but it's also really fun because so many people, especially, if you want to call them light workers or whatever, term you resonate with, people that, are on their awakening path and want to do good for the planet and want to contribute to this conscious awakening. So many of them are like struggling with money. And obviously, most people right now are struggling with money. Like middle class is getting wiped out, rich are getting richer, poor are getting poorer. We're in this liquidity crisis. We're on the verge of this huge international financial collapse, which we know XRP is going to play a big role in. And so this is like a solution that I'm seeing so many people are being guided to. And I think it's for a reason.
Yeah, let's ask the other side of that question. For as many as there are that are guided to it and are spiritually aligned, and they want to do a lot of great stuff with the money, and they want to have this sort of perpetual money machine that sort of gets pregnant every month, and it spits out more cash, and the amount of cash that it's going to spit out, hopefully, is so much that we have to start a new, humanitarian project every single month. Wouldn't that be a problem? But there's still a larger majority of people that are missing the entire thing completely, and they don't understand what XRP is. So can you explain that while I go get my crazy dogs who are not going to come back in? All right. I'll be right
Yeah,
back.
you take care of that. Yeah, I gotcha. So yeah, so like I think there is, there's people who are being guided to this, and there's people that are not being guided to this. And obviously, as probably everyone here watching is familiar with, XRP is probably the most divisive and polarizing of all the cryptos out there. Like people either love XRP or they hate XRP. There's not too much in the middle. There's some people that are like, yeah, but most people are love or hate. And I find that the people that really don't resonate with it tend to be the people who are more so in it for the personal gain and just materialism. And again, there's nothing wrong with having nice things. We got to fill our cup before we can really overflow and give to others. But if you're in the game just because you want to get rich, or, even more so if you're wanting to get power and you want to have power over people, I'm seeing those people, the more aggressive, divisive people, those are the people that tend to really hate XRP and really trash talk, the entire community.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I've seen people outside the XRP community comment on how the XRP community, even though they're not in it, they recognize that it's the most close knit. You could say cult like. I don't think that's an accurate term, but from the outside, they look at it like a cult. But it's more of it's a movement, right? It's a spiritual movement of liberation and sovereignty and personal empowerment, and it really stands as this thing to change the world. So yeah, I think there's a particular reason why many people feel this really polarizing energy away from it, and those are the people that tend to, I think, not have the service to others mentality in their hearts and in their minds. And I think that's like it's God's work there. Like I think God is putting out a message. And if you have the ears to hear it, the eyes to see it, but also the courage to act on it, those are the people that are more so balanced in this whole awakening process that we're going through. And the people that I think are really gonna, when those millions or billions or whatever come in for all of us, those are the people that aren't gonna just sit in their house all day, sit on their Lamborghinis and their mansions, but they're actually going to go out and do these humanitarian projects. And everybody's got their
that's such a three-dimensional world, right? That's such a three-dimensional world. Lamborghini is still an extension of a Model T Ford, 4 rubber tires, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we know there's so much better than that. I mean, I know that. We got technology way beyond that.
Sorry for interrupting you, but keep going.
No, yeah. I mean, to touch on that, I think this is also okay. So my background is in, I went to school for aerospace engineering at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And if you're not familiar with that, that's like one of the big recruiting schools for aerospace for a lot of these covert space programs. So it's right next to Vandenberg Air Force Base, and now it's Space Force Base. And that's a whole conversation within itself about this transition and kind of, the infiltration of the deep state. Yeah. But I think that part of what this represents and what I'm really interested in with my background is how this is going to help bring out those technologies, because we know Tesla, was working on stuff that would put the Model T and, modern cars and stuff to shame. The story goes that like, Tesla went to JP Morgan and was like, hey, we could take the tire, we could turn it on its side. We got electrogravitics. All our cars can fly, no more wasteful energy. People can have cars that run forever, basically. And of course, JP Morgan's like, nah, that's not going to make me money. So why would we do that?
Exactly.
So I think this this whole thing is going to help bring out all that stuff too. It's going to help liberate us on a technology level and bring all these things to the surface, because basically we're flipping the pyramid, right? So
Right.
like the pyramid top down feeds the 1%. When XRP really flips the switch, this pyramid's going to flip upside down, and you're going to have all these common folk like us, have all this money, like what we saw with Bitcoin, but on a whole different level, because now you have this really powerful, you could say cult like, but positive like community that really wants to do good with this. And then, that's when things start to get really interesting, because once we get these technologies out there, once we get disclosure of the not only the tech, but the kind of spiritual phenomena, the UFO phenomena, everything associated with that,
Hmm.
I think XRP plays a very pivotal role in all of that.
Right. Look, we know that the XRP people are on a spiritual mission. There's no question about it. But overall, the entire cryptocurrency as a whole becoming the catalyst for humanity's higher purpose. How do you see that playing out?
How it becomes a catalyst for humanity's higher purpose.
Yeah.
I think once we flip that pyramid, we're going to start having these souls who have these spiritual missions,
Hmm.
people who are, everybody's got their own unique skill set, passion, interests, their personal background. And whether that's childcare, or that's health, or that's technology, or that's building communities, construction, whatever it is, people are going to be able to take that and apply it. And we're going to have this huge diversity of interests that are now funded and brought to the public. And that's going to create, I mean, a massive wave of change on the planet. I mean, the timeline right now, as I'm sure you and everyone else here can feel, it's like it's speeding up, right? Like this year went by insanely fast. Time seems to be speeding up. And at the same time, the amount that we're experiencing within a period of time, like every month or every year, is increasing. Like I think they say, the amount of information we're exposed to in a day is more than somebody 100 years ago was exposed to in like several years. So we're processing and going through things so much faster, and that's just going to speed up that momentum. And then, ultimately where I think this could go, getting a little more into the woo woo here, but I think that this is a possibility, is that when you combine this with what's going on with UFO ET contact disclosure, which, there was just a huge documentary that Marco Rubio and a lot of intelligence and military and government people were involved in, that just came out a couple days ago, called Age of Disclosure. And apparently the Trump administration is, from what I've heard, like kind of preparing their reaction to this documentary, because a big part of what they talk about is how Trump is in this pivotal position to expose this on the world stage and be, go down in history even more than he already has by talking about this phenomenon. And one of the things that they also talk about is the economic impact. And specifically, they interviewed a guy who was asked by, I think it was Steve Mnuchin, Trump's Treasury Secretary from the last term. Mnuchin had asked him to study the economic impacts of this kind of disclosure. And when you don't have crypto in that frame of context, it looks like, okay, yeah, that could cause uncertainty is not good for the markets, right? As you know,
Sure.
like anytime there's a war, anytime there's something that creates uncertainty, the markets crash, COVID, whatever
Totally.
it is. So what is the solution to that? Well, the solution is this new system, whether you want to call it the quantum financial system, or, the financial reset, the great reset, whatever you want to call it. That is the pivotal puzzle piece that plays into this. And I think that's when we start getting into really interesting territory that we can only really begin to speculate on. But my theory is that if we do have Trump or whoever come out and disclose, there are non-human beings out there that are interacting with us, which is clearly happening on both a physical and a spiritual level. Um, where does that put us in terms of global and interplanetary trade? And one of the things that I kind of saw, I don't claim to be a psychic or anything, but I do get like kind of intuitive hits and visions and things like that. And one of the things that I saw when I first was getting into XRP was that this was going to be a mechanism to connect us to interplanetary trade. At the very least on the human level, we're colonizing the moon, we're colonizing Mars. Arguably, that's already happened in these secret space programs for decades now. But officially, Elon's kind of putting it into the mainstream. And we're going to need a way to, fun to have an economy, and literally an interplanetary economy just between us humans, between these different bodies in our solar system. But then you take it another step, and okay, well, imagine Trump does announce, okay, there is other species out there, and for the friendly ones, that could potentially open up paths of trade between us and these species. And what is the most you know succinct, efficient form of settlement and trade? Well, it's going to be XRP. And then when you also think about, like, I think many of the technology improvements that we've had, particularly since Tesla, I think they've been seeded here by these higher intelligences, whether or not those that created the technology are aware of it. I think some people like Tesla were. I suspect David Schwartz is one of these people as well, whether or not he's aware of it. That when they get these ideas for these new technologies, that that's coming potentially from a consciousness seed from a higher intelligence on the spiritual plane. And so I can see a world in the next couple decades where we're using XRP because it's been implanted here by, we'll call them the ETs, the galactics, spirit guides, angels, whatever. I think they're putting that here for a reason. And of course, to increase our sovereignty, to shift the power structure on the planet, but it could also be to enable this interplanetary trade with other species, which that's when we get into, who knows where it could go from there, because that's when it really gets outside of the imagination.
Absolutely. Do you think that this whole thing of you're going to have two classes? You're going to have the very, very rich, which I believe might be a lot richer than the 7,200 multi-billionaires that are on planet Earth currently right now, and there's going to be a lot more of them. I speculate at least 1 million multi-billionaires, maybe more than that. And they're going to be richer by a factor of 10 to 1 based on the old regime versus the new regime. And I think that you'll have a situation where the people who have positioned themselves and saw the writing on the wall are able to unenslave themselves, if you will, if that's even a word. If it's not, it is now. And the people who are going to go for the basic income because the robots are coming in, the artificial intelligence is coming at us at lightning speed. It's all over the internet. You can't make a left, you can't make a right, you can't go straight, you can't go backwards. It's all over the internet, right? So do those people are going to be subject to Palantir and Oracle digital ID framework?
Well, I mean, I don't know for sure. Obviously, I do feel, even though there's a lot of genuine concern around Palantir and a lot of these companies, I trust Trump, and I trust, it's not that I blindly trust Trump, but I have a really strong intuitive feeling that he is working for the greater good, and that
Yes.
there's a lot that we don't know behind the scenes about what's going on. And hopefully that'll come out. Maybe some of it never will, but I think it will. But I do suspect that Palantir is working for the greater good. And I know the concern is mass surveillance for a lot of people, but you got to think, they're going after these satanic pedophiles, these deep staters, these criminals that have committed huge crimes against humanity. And they're really good at hiding. They're good at hiding their funds. They're good at hiding themselves. They're good at hiding their influence, right? Most of these people probably we've never heard of. Like, we've heard of the big names, Soros, Gates, the different tech CEOs. But I think the true ruling class, there are names that we've never even, they've never graced our ears. So in order to really find that, you do have to have in a decent amount of mass surveillance in order to surveil that. And there is always going to be a balance between when it comes to governance and oversight, between power and empowerment and helping the people. There's, when you really allow a group or a person or whatever to create radical change, like, for instance, I think of El Salvador's president, Bukele.
Bukele,
right?
I love him.
Right? Very polarizing figure, right? Most people in our circles are fond of him because we've seen what he's done. He's turned El Salvador around. He's taken it from one of the most dangerous countries in the world with
the safest
with MS-13. Exactly. And now people are going back home. People that fled the country are going back home. They're taking their families there. it changed on the the U.S. like watch list, like they changed the status of how safe it is and everything. But he has certain executive powers that he had to invoke to do
Keep
that.
going, keep going. I got to bring my dog in. One more. Last dog.
So there's always going to be a threat. There's always going to be a situation where you can look at something like what happened with Bukele and go, okay, that person, they can abuse that power if they wanted to. And I think that's also the idea of the noble king, right? Like in biblical times, we had kings, and those kings could abuse their power, or they could use that power to really benefit the people. And that's kind of where, as great as democracy is, you are ruling on behalf of a lot of ignorant people who don't actually know what's going on. And so that would be the downside of democracy amongst all its benefits. And so I think it's the same thing with like, Palantir and some of these other companies where they're in positions of power that they could abuse, but we're going to have to see how it plays out, because I speculate that that power is actually going to be used to liberate and free humanity. And maybe it won't be, but that's my feeling on it.
Well, do you think that the people that are not, they don't either understand, or they're afraid, or they don't have the horsepower or the intelligence to be able to get position because they're afraid of the wallets, the software wallets, the hardware wallets, going on the internet, even purchasing this, it could be a headache, right? Do you think
Yeah.
that they're going to be enslaved? Basically, if you don't get along with the government, or if you don't get along with the Palantirs of the world, or the oracles of the world, they're going to shut your money. Is China coming to the United States? In short,
I don't think so. I think that's what Trump is really working to stop right now, and putting somebody like David Sachs in power and all the pro crypto people in these various financial positions of power. I
right?
think that that's what they're actively working towards, is not creating a surveillance state and a financial power state. And like David Schwartz once famously said, the freedom of finance is the core freedom through which all of our other freedoms revolve around. And I think that was proven true with the Canadian trucker rally, where, for people that aren't familiar with that, long story short, all these truckers going to protest, the government shut down all their financial accounts, right? Because they knew if they took out the ability for them to use their banks, you can't buy gas, you can't drive across the country, you can't
Precisely.
protest, you can't. In America, you can't purchase arms if you can't purchase, right? So it's
Yeah,
everything revolves around freedom of finance.
and this
And
is
the
this
Canadian
is
truckers,
actually happening in China right now. People can't buy shit. People can't. If you're against the government, there's 15,000 people a week going homeless because you're not agreeing with the government.
right? So that's a big, obviously a big concern and a big
Yeah.
threat. And we'll have to see. I mean, I pray and hope the best for them over there, but I do think that what we're doing here will ripple out, no pun intended, but will ripple out to the
Yeah.
rest of the world. And, we might enter into this space where we have very polarized alliances worldwide. Even though what's going on in China, I do suspect that Trump and Xi and Putin are working together to dismantle the European deep state
Mhm.
cabal. Um, and Xi also, I don't think, even though he's in that position, I don't think he holds all the power. I think there's evidence that he is working to take out their relative, communist deep state that is still holding up a lot of those surveillance state power structures. Um, the jury's out on that one for me as far as exactly where he's aligned. But there is evidence, I think, that the three of them are working together to dismantle the European cabal.
Yeah.
And going back to what you were saying about the universal basic income and how that's going to play out with AI, because I think that's a big conversation a lot of people are afraid of too. Is like, what's going to happen with AI? Is AI going to come in and take all our jobs, and everybody's going to be poor and stuck on government income? I think AI will do that. I think it's going to be liberating, and there will be a period of transition. But where I see like universal basic income going, at least what I think would be a good idea, is not to have government sponsored universal basic income, right? Because we don't want to be dependent upon the government. But I think where it could go is using blockchain. If there is whether it's through XRP, through something like Evernorth with their DeFi abilities, or it's a brand new chain or something, if there is a blockchain that we can stake our assets for a good amount of percentage and say there is some kind of retribution to the people, probably not through Doge, because I heard Doge just got shut down. But if there is a not just these little stimulus checks of $2,000, but say everybody gets something like $500,000 or $1 million per person, something that you could go and just blow that, right? It's not life-changing money in the sense that you could live forever,
No.
unless you're very frugal, right? You could buy a Bugatti, or like even a Bugatti's more expensive than that. You could buy a Ferrari or something, and or just a house. Buy a cheap house in California. That's $1 million, right?
Right.
So what I think that would do is, if everybody got a big chunk of change like that and it's on the blockchain, it's in a wallet, but then you can stake that for say 10, maybe upwards of 20%, that could get you around $100,000 a year in universal basic income. But you're not dependent upon the system.
Right.
It's in your control.
Exactly.
And you can blow it, right? You can waste it, and then that's on you. You spend it all, you have no UBI. But if you're smart and you save it, you can live on $100K a year. That's a pretty good paying job for the average person. And just getting that for free, that is where I could see this could go, where crypto is a core part of that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people that are about to really get fabulously wealthy. And my one advice to you is take some of that money, invest it in yourself, because you're going to be the most important token in the cryptocurrency sphere, where you learn how to manage your money properly and grow generational wealth instead of blowing it on stuff. Because when you go and buy a Bugatti, as soon as you take that sucker home, it's worth $50,000 less than we just paid for it 20 minutes ago. Just like that, right? Yeah. So, you got to get smart with your money. You got to have your money working for you instead of you working for your money. You understand that concept. I understand that concept. I know enough about this stuff to be dangerous. I know more than most financial planners. As a matter of fact, when you call me and you want to buy a large amount of XRP, or you send me a text message at 786-704-8817, I get on the phone with you. I schedule a 15, 20-minute consultation free of charge, and I ask you questions that no financial planner in the world is going to ask you. Even though I'm not a financial planner, I'm an ex-pizza guy and should never take any financial advice from a guy who used to toss pizzas for a living and own a bunch of pizza shops. I guarantee you I'm a lot more thorough than they are. But before we go further, I want to interrupt this, and we go directly to my friend here who is running for governor. I'm sure you heard of Louis Herms, right? Louis is running for governor of California, so we got to give him a plug. I promised I would. So if you go to Herms for Cali, HERMS for FOR Cali, CALI.com, go give him a follow, go support him. He's going to be Donald Trump. He's going to be like the Donald Trump of California on steroids. And let me tell you something. Wait to see some of the commercials that are about to come out. He doesn't know yet, but I'm producing a commercial for him that's going to blow his mind. But it's going to happen here shortly. You want to definitely do that, because I plan on living in California at some point. I like Florida, but Florida is like dating a girl that has no boobs. You know what I mean? It's got no mountains. It's got nothing. It's flat. Okay, like a flat Earth. Okay, California is special because the landscape is the most beautiful in the world. Period. The politics suck, but I think we're going to fix that. And do I believe we can win? Absolutely. There's no question in my mind we can win. We have an incredible business plan. As long as we execute that business plan according to the way it's on paper, and we get the right managers delegating on which piece goes first, second, third, and fourth, we're going to absolutely kill it in California. He's going to be your next governor, or he likes to be called the next guardian. He wants you guys to be the governors to keep his feet to the fire, okay? And he's going to be the guardian of California, which I love that, by the way. So let's get to the next question. The next question is, we just saw the market took a major dip, okay? They've been maintaining it at that $1.94 to $2.04, and we had this famous date of August 22nd was supposed to happen, and we went up by a whopping 13 cents, and and that was it, right? Meanwhile, there's all these crazy projections out there. Do you think this had anything to do with Epstein, potentially Epstein being one of the masterminds behind Bitcoin and the manipulation? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that
They released
not too
everything,
many
right?
people
Did
are
they
talking
release
about this.
everything? Did they release the whole thing now?
No, I don't think
Supposedly?
everything's out yet. I think they have until, my understanding is they have until like December 19th, 20th, right before the
Okay.
solstice. I think
Okay.
it's still sitting on Pam Bondi's desk, but they
Okay.
released some stuff. So I think the Democrats came out, they released some stuff, and then Trump
Mm-hmm.
admin came out and released some counter files.
Mm-hmm.
And in those files, there was information about Epstein and how he essentially funded Bitcoin core development in the early days. So not that he was Satoshi necessarily, although that, is still up for debate.
Mm-hmm.
I think Satoshi is probably multiple people, not
Right.
just one. Homeland Security said it's at least four people. But in
David
these
Schwartz being one of
files,
them. David
yeah,
Schwartz being one of
exactly,
them.
exactly. Well, and you can imagine, something like Bitcoin, such a powerful technology in its day, would have both dark and light trying to influence it, right?
Yeah.
So David Schwartz, being on the light side, I believe, could be involved in it. But then you have someone like Epstein who comes in after it's made and tries, manipulating it with massive funding. So he
Sure.
funded. MIT had an initiative called the Digital Currency Initiative, and from the numbers I've seen, he donated approximately $850,000 to that DCI Digital Currency Initiative between 2002 and like the decade after that. So I think, I mean, to me, it seems pretty obvious that that's a big part of this crash. I think the crash started a little bit before those files came out back in late October, but
Mm-hmm.
then we saw it go. It dumped much more significantly when those files came out, and not too many Bitcoin people are wanting to talk about that. Um, and we'll see when the rest of these files come out, we'll see if there's more connections between Epstein and Bitcoin. But I think that if more info comes out regarding that, that could be the beginning of the end for Bitcoin and the beginning of this decoupling between Bitcoin and the rest of the market, and particularly XRP. And you can imagine if a lot of whales see that and they want to separate themselves from Bitcoin, if there is significant connections there, where would that money flow? I mean, it's probably not going to flow into Ethereum too much, maybe a little bit, but Bitcoin and Ethereum, they kind of, a lot of those communities butt heads as well. Also, Ethereum, as we know from that documentary that came out a year or so ago, the Fruition Films one, Ethereum was created as an anti-XRP initiative between JP Morgan, Chinese dark money, Vitalik and Consensus, and they basically organized all this big funding to front run Ethereum as the new global currency. So where would it naturally flow? I think it would flow into XRP. And when we have, all this other context going on with XRP that's making XRP more bullish than ever, I think we have four active ETFs that have been approved. Two were just approved yesterday from when we're filming this. So those just went live. I think it was Bitwise and
Mm-hmm.
Franklin Templeton, XRPZ, and then we also have the Grayscale ETF and the Canary Capital ETF, and then I think there's another six or so ETFs on the table still currently that are pending approval.
The stage is set for XRP to literally swallow this thing, the whole entire thing. I say there's an old saying, I can't think of it right now, but and people can't see it. You can see it. I
Yeah.
can see it. The stage is set for XRP to dominate this entire space, but yet the Bitcoin Nancy's will fight you tooth and nail on a coin that does absolutely nothing. There are major catalysts right now, right? With the ETFs, there's Evernorth is going public. What's the current market dynamics that could cause XRP liquidity shock right now?
Okay, so as of a couple of years ago, I remember the statistics were that circulating on all the major exchanges, I think there was between 4 and 5, maybe 6 billion, also percent of the total supply of XRP. So of the 100 billion, there was only 4 to 5 billion that was actually liquid and available on the exchanges. The rest of it being held by Ripple and institutions that Ripple is sold to and other groups. So that was a few years ago. I don't know what the current numbers are, but I imagine it's significantly less, especially since Ripple has been lowering their supply and institutions have been gaining their supply because they've been selling to institutions more and more. What happens when, these ETFs, they've gone live? That's not going to be an instant jump in price as we've seen, but that over the course of the next year and few years, that's going to suck up a lot of that circulating supply, right? Those ETFs, it's gonna be a slow at first and then suddenly kind of event where that supply is going to be quickly, used by those ETFs and those funds. And then you have, like you said, Evernorth. Evernorth, if people aren't familiar with that, this is a third-party company that has essentially been officially endorsed by Ripple. Ripple has invested a certain amount of money. Chris Larson, I think, put 50 million XRP in. David Schwartz stepped down as CTO of Ripple, partially to become an advisor to Evernorth. So they're basically the third-party Ripple-approved XRP DeFi, not blockchain, but private company. So their goal is that they're going to be amassing the world's largest XRP treasury. I believe they wanted to have a goal of 1 billion XRP, or maybe it was $1 billion. I'm forgetting right now. I think it was $1 billion of XRP by the time that they went public in Q1 of next year. I'm pretty sure they've already hit that goal. So they're already way ahead of what they expected. And they're going to be buying that XRP off the open market. So it's not going to be one of these situations where they're purchasing from dark pools, right? It's not going to be one of these off the market dark pools where huge amounts are purchased, but the price goes down because it's not affecting the public market. And so you get, the ETFs, companies like Evernorth purchasing off the open market, drawing up liquidity, and then also the snapback effect of these dark pools. Because even though in the moment when these dark pools are buying all this supply, even though it's not affecting the market immediately, it's like a rubber band where it's being pulled and pulled and pulled, and eventually it's going to snap and it's going to fly back the other direction. And that liquidity, even though it's not represented in the public price, will dry up in those exchanges. What's actually available to you and I and Evernorth and the average person on your Coinbase and your Kraken. And speaking of Kraken, they just had a crazy wick to $90 XRP just the other day. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
So, and that's not like a little exchange. That's not like a tiny thin order book. Like,
yeah, and it's always with XRP. We've seen all kinds of price ranges from 200,000, 500,000, 100,000, 50,000, $90, and all price range, right? And it's 9 out of 10 times it's always XRP. Is that maybe the good guys trying to tell us to pay attention? I believe so. I'm a superstitious guy. Yeah, I missed Bitcoin. I missed Google. I missed Facebook. I missed Amazon. I missed Apple. I missed the .com era. I missed it all. Mm-hmm. But I didn't miss the one. I didn't miss the one that's important. I wish I would have paid attention. I got talked out of Bitcoin, and I'm a little bit of a gambler. Listen, 0.0008 of a penny is what it was the day, if you could figure out how to buy it, obviously. 3 zeros and an 8 of a penny, 800 Bitcoins for $1. Hello.
Yeah. Crazy.
Is anybody home?
Yeah.
Right.
But honestly, it's kind of a blessing that we didn't get in on Bitcoin, because I think there was this brainwashing effect where if you were early in Bitcoin, most people became Bitcoin maxis, where they had these blinders.
That's true. On. Yeah, that's true. That is true. However, I'm not here because I like Brad Garlinghouse, or I like the Satoshi Nakamoto white papers, or Bitcoin, or the logo of Bitcoin versus the logo. I'm here for one reason. I couldn't give a shit. I'm here. Who's got the utility? Who's poised to be center stage to take over the entire world? It's Ripple. If it was Bitcoin, I'd be on Bitcoin's side. But I'm not tribal to one brand. I'm here for one reason: to make money. I couldn't give a shit about the brand, the logo, who's behind it, who's not behind it. Satoshi Nakamoto, Brad Garlinghouse, Chris Larson. I couldn't give two rips. I'm here to make money, period. You know what I mean? But not everybody's like me. Not everybody's like me, though. I'm a weird dude.
Well, and I think it benefits us that we weren't early in Bitcoin, in the sense that I think a lot of those Bitcoin people are going to miss out on XRP, the biggest financial opportunity, because they have those blinders on, because they were early. they're brainwashed into thinking Bitcoin is the best. And I think most people who are buying Bitcoin today are only buying it because you have people like Michael Saylor and other people who are legacy Bitcoin holders who are also blinders on Bitcoin only. And it's only because they own such a huge amount of it that they want to push it. So they want to push the thing that they own the most of to make money as well. But they're going to miss the bigger opportunity, which is XRP and the otother ISO 20022 ecosystem coins. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a blessing in a way, you know, even though
Well,
we missed that, like I think it opened up the doors for us to see this more clearly.
exactly. He just did a interview in the flesh, in person, at Grant Cardone, right in the studio in Sunny Isles or Aventura, Florida. It was a fascinating interview. It was like 2 hours and 14 minutes long. It's long, but towards the end of it, Cardone asks him XRP. He completely avoided, like he never even asked the
Yeah.
question. Just kept going forward, like he never even asked the question. And it's funny to see. I pointed out, as a matter of fact, I clipped that little piece and I put it inside our Telegram group so that people could see how they avoid. We're like the boogeyman, you know. We're not to be talked about. But don't think for one second that guys like Sailor don't have at least 1 million XRP or more sitting in a bag somewhere.
Okay, I agree. And you know what's funny about that is if he was asked that question 2, 3 years ago, he would have trashed XRP. He would have taken
Immediately.
that opportunity to trash it. But what
Right.
I noticed was that after Trump got inaugurated
Hmm.
and he brought all those crypto people to the White House for that meeting where Saylor and
Sailor was
Garlinghouse and
sitting
everyone was there.
across from Brad Garlinghouse. How uncomfortable was
I,
that?
I think he got briefed on the bigger picture here. And I think he either got humbled or he was told not to trash talk it. And so now when he's asked about XRP, he does what you said. He just ignores it.
Avoids it completely.
Yeah.
Completely. Final
A big
question.
shift in narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Final question. Then we'll have some fun. Sologenics and Corium. They're about to
Mm,
launch Solotex. How big is Solotex
yeah.
for tokenization on the XRP ledger? And why should people be paying attention to this?
Yeah. So if people haven't heard of this, the biggest layer two on XRPL is a project called Sologenic. They were given funding from Ripple in their early days, and their whole major mission is tokenization of every form of value on the XRPL. And so they also created this same team created another layer one blockchain that's built on the Cosmos layer zero ecosystem called Corium. And Corium is actually faster than XRP, and it is ISO 20022 approved. And it also has crazy staking rewards right now, which is what we're really focusing on in my academy and helping people set up with DeFi. It's like 42% APR staking rewards right now because it's so early. So Sologenic and Corium, their biggest obstacle to getting tokenization on the XRPL was getting a broker dealer license in the United States. I believe they've already got one in Dubai. They're working internationally, but the US is obviously the big hotspot, and they needed a broker dealer license. So that was going on for years. And then I believe it was about a year ago, they officially partnered with a company called Texture Capital, and Texture Capital was one of the groups that was represented in the crypto roundtable at the White House. The ones that occurred, maybe 6 months or so ago. You remember that when they had the crypto roundtables?
Yes.
The CEO of Texture Capital was one of those guys.
Yeah.
And so Sologenic and Texture Capital are combining efforts with Sologenic's tokenization technology on the XRPL, running on the Corium infrastructure, and Texture Capital's broker dealer license and all their connections. And they've created a new entity called Solotex.
Hmm.
And you can look them up. You can go to their website. You can join their wait list. They're going to be going live, I think, as soon as the market starts to flip around, because they were initially expected to launch September or fall time of this year,
Hmm.
but they said basically the market conditions weren't optimal for it, is kind of the read between the lines that we got. So this is going to be huge because it's going to be the first truly tokenized um, not only the stock market, that's what it's going to start with. So they said it's going to be the entire New York Stock Exchange will go live on day one, is what they've said, whenever they launch,
This is
and
with
you'll have
Corium.
all of that.
Corium.
So it runs on the Corium blockchain, but it will be tokenized on the XRP ledger.
So Sologenic Corium on the solar, and it's called Solotex.
Solotex, yeah, I know. There's a lot of names involved. It's a little complicated.
I just want to make sure that the audience understands.
So Sologenic runs on the XRP ledger. It's the biggest layer 2 on the XRP ledger. If you go look at all the XRP ledger coins, it's number 1.
Yeah.
If you go to First Ledger, for instance, it's the top one, and they've been around for years. So the technology runs on the XRP ledger, but the Solotex technology that's actually running that runs on Corium as well. So I think the tokenization will be cross-chain between Corium and XRP, because Corium, part of what Corium does is it's a bridge between the XRPL and the Cosmos ecosystem. And Cosmos is like the Atom coin, and Cosmos is huge because they call it the IBC, the Inter Blockchain Protocol, right? IBC, yeah, Inter Blockchain Protocol, but it's also, they call it the internet. It's kind of the internet blockchain like ecosystem. It's a huge layer 0, meaning you could have all these different layer 1 blockchains exist on a layer 0 infrastructure. And so Corium's one of those. So Corium connects XRP to that, which is huge because, we need bridges moving forward. We need interoperability between different blockchains. So to kind of rephrase that again more simply, Solotex uses Sologenic, which runs on the XRPL, combined with Corium's infrastructure to tokenize the New York Stock Exchange, and inevitably, I'm assuming real estate, and I think their goal is really any form of value. I think this is going to be the leading tokenization platform for the entire space. The big one that was kind of talked about recently was Ondo Finance, but my understanding is Ondo is not true tokenization. It's kind of a representation. It's kind of a fake tokenization, if you will. Sologenic's tokenization infrastructure is true tokenization that's backed one-to-one by everything. So you're going to be able to go and buy Tesla stock. You can buy Palantir, Apple, Google, whatever it is, hold it on your XRP wallet. You're going to be able to hold these stocks on your private wallet. And they're also coming out with a card, the Solo card, that will allow you to spend your XRP and these different assets directly from your wallet, which is a game changer. Because we have these cards for like Coinbase and Uphold, but you have the risk of holding it on those exchanges, right? So we don't want to hold on the exchanges because obviously there's risk there. But if we can spend directly from our wallets, and we can spend digital gold, we can spend Apple stock, Tesla stock, XRP, Sologenic, even Bitcoin and stuff, I think will be tokenized on there. That pretty much circumnavigates the need for a bank account, because now you have a savings that you can access. You can buy your groceries with it. You can have it in your private wallet. You get all the benefits and sovereignty of every best part of the blockchain.
Yeah, let me ask you. Yeah, go ahead. Let me ask you a question. Let's talk about wallets for a second. There's a new wallet that's been around maybe a little while, maybe a year and a half, 2 years, which is called Tangent Wallet. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I've never used it, but I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, it seems to be the most ease of use as far as being friendly for the average guy who doesn't know a lot about computers and holding your XRP. Is there a possibility at some point that these wallets, because you are your own bank, that they could be attached to some kind of a debit card that's attached to that wallet?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
That's exactly what I thought so.
That's what Sologenic is. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what Sologenic is going to be releasing. And I'm sure, many other platforms are going to follow suit with that. But that's the game changer. When you can have a MasterCard, Visa card that pulls directly from your Tangent wallet or your Decent or your Ledger or
while
whatever
your money
it is.
is being staked and while your money is churning, making more money so that you don't run out of money by spending money, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Interesting.
And then you don't need a bank account, right?
Now
if you
let's
can
get
spend
serious.
directly from your wallet, you don't need a bank account.
Let's get serious. I'm a little bit old-fashioned. I have a gangster mentality, and I was raised to think that everybody's out to get me. and
Yeah.
I trust nobody. And is there going to be another FTX situation that arises out of all of this staking and decentralized financing down the road that we can't see it right now, but down the road say, oh my God, we all trusted that guy, and all of a sudden, boom, somebody's living in
So
Argentina
that's
with my money.
right. So yeah, valid question. And that's the whole purpose behind getting a card that pulls directly from your wallet instead of from the exchange, right? Because FTX, they were an exchange, right? It's like Coinbase, it's like Uphold, it's like crypto.com. You can go to all those guys and you can get one of their debit cards, but you risk an FTX situation because they're a private company. They could go down as a private company. They could go bankrupt. They're legally allowed to use your funds as bailout money in most cases if they go bankrupt, right? So the alternative, like what we're talking about with a solo card and with this whole world opening up, is you have a card that pulls directly from your wallet. There's no private company involved on the governance level. It's all your own personal sovereignty. So the only real
You're
risk
your
at
own
that point
bank.
is the market.
So you are your own bank because you have a wallet. Your wallet represents the bank. You have a debit
Yep.
card that's hooked up to the blockchain, which is connected to your wallet, and you're drawing money from a system that's already staking and decentralized finance, where your money's making a yield every single month. And what are the chances of your
Correct.
money disappearing in that scenario?
So the risk in that scenario, I would see two major risks. One is just the normal market volatility, right? If the
Hmm.
price of whatever assets you're holding goes down, just like with anything, there's that risk always.
Hmm.
The
Sure.
other risk is a blockchain bug or an exploit in the blockchain itself. So like a
Yeah.
Terra Luna type of
Hmm.
situation, right? Where there's something wrong with the actual code and that glitches out and that could create an issue. But that's for any blockchain out there. There is that risk, both of those risks for any crypto, that there could be a blockchain bug or just that the market price goes down. But the benefit, the advantage to that over a private company like an FTX or a Uphold is that it's decentralized when it's a blockchain and it's way more transparent. So you have all these different validators, you have all these different people who are able to look into the open source code and all proactively contribute towards making that ecosystem as robust as possible versus having a single point of control like you do with a private company on an exchange where they can lie to you, where FTX can say, no, we're not hedging people's money, no, we're not leveraging your funds, it's all safe, it's all backed up, but they lied, right?
Right.
But with the blockchain, it's all transparent. Like it's a public effort. So if it does go wrong, it's more on the community than it is like a single company
One
that can be
particular
deceiving you.
individual. Right. Like
Right.
FTX. Okay.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about borrowing against your cryptos. I'm not sold. I got to be honest with you. I'm not sold because the market is so volatile right now because we haven't entered this new world yet. We're about to, but we're not exactly there.
Hmm.
So the market takes a major dip, 80, 90%. All of a sudden, you borrowed a shitload of money against your cryptos. Somebody else owns your cryptos at that point, don't they?
Well, basically, you can get liquidated. Yeah, that's the risk with whether it's a centralized crypto loan or a decentralized crypto loan. That's just the inherent risk that I think you'll always have because the way that, say that a decentralized crypto loan works is you put in a certain amount of collateral. Sometimes you can adjust how much collateral, and that gives you a different risk factor. So you can, if you want to go super risky, say you put in 10,000 XRP, you can go super risky and pull out 90% of that as a loan, right? So 9,000 XRP for the 10,000 you put in. But then if the price goes down just a little bit, you could liquidate that and it's gone, right? But you could also over collateralize it. You could put in twice as much as what you want to pull out. And that would mean that the market would have to pull back by 50% in order to get it liquidated. So that risk will always be there. But I
I
do
think
think
I
that
think it's a risky move. I think borrowing against your XRP or your cryptocurrency that's worth a lot of money, I think is a risky move. I think
it's
there's
risky in this market. When it's volatile, it's risky. But I think when things stabilize, when XRP finds a stable high price, then it will be much, much safer.
But you see, I would rather do the Sologenics Corium thing that you just explained with Solatex, where your money sits there, it's earning a yield. You don't have to separate your money or give it to one particular entity or one particular guy or gal, and then they're gone with your
Yeah.
money and they're living in Buenos Aires with your money. Then I have to activate some people down in Buenos Aires, if you know what I mean, right? But the reality,
Yes.
but the reality is, this situation sounds to me a lot more safer than borrowing against your money. Borrowing against your money, yes, it might be maybe less risky in the new world and this new market that we're going in that might be a lot more stable. But right now, it's risky as
Yeah.
hell. I think
I agree.
that staking through this Sologenics Corium might be something we want to look into, as long as I can understand it and I'm assured that I'm not going to lose my money. Because we
Yeah.
worked so hard to get with where we're at. To just play risky now is just plain old stupid. Because even if I'm getting 0% interest on my money, I don't think I could spend it all. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Zero. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, that's where I find staking to be the lowest risk form of yield generation over lending, borrowing, over liquidity pools, especially, which are highly volatile, highly risky. If you find a good blockchain that you trust, like I do with Corium, and Corium's got insane APR right now. Like I said, it's like 42%. And that's kind of an early bird gets the worm thing. Like I
Okay.
expect that'll go down over the coming years. But it's the least risky in the sense that the risk is pretty much those same two risks that we talked about earlier: market volatility itself, but you're not going to get liquidated. It's just like holding it. So you might as well create a yield on it if you're just going to hold it. And then, the risk with every crypto that there could be a bug in
Sure.
the blockchain that
What is
causes
the
something.
yield right now on a monthly basis, yearly basis? Give me an idea of what right now. If you're playing in the real estate market and you buy like a building with 100 units,
Mm.
you're lucky if you're getting 4 or 5% interest by the time you pay all your managers and cutting the grass and maintaining the pool and the pipes burst and the electrical box blows up, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Overall is about 4 or 5%. You might get some good years where you get maybe 6 or 7%, but those are far and few in between. Typically, it's between 4 and 5, maybe 6 sometimes. What kind of yield are we talking about per year on this Sologenics Corium thing that's in play right now?
So right now, Corium it's 42% APR annually. So you're getting nearly
42%.
half, 42% annually. So that comes out to about 3.5% a month.
So if
So
you
I know
had
people that
somebody out
are,
there that has 100,000 or 500,000 or a million, I got some of my customers have tens of millions of XRP, literally. Would you advise them that this is safe? You could put your whole 10 million XRP on there and you're going to yield 42%?
well, I can't advise anything because I'm not a financial advisor. So I
Oh,
can't,
you
I
too,
can't
huh?
recommend or, hey, I was a pizza guy at one point too. I delivered pizzas. So
Okay,
I'm
there
not
you
a
go.
financial advisor.
I made them, you delivered
Um,
them.
yeah, yeah. But I will say that the Corium of all the assets that I own, Corium is the lowest market cap right now. So the liquidity is not super thick, but I do expect that to go up significantly. And because it's the riskiest in terms of market cap on paper, it has the highest return, So I think that this could even outperform XRP. And something I didn't bring up about Corium that's huge, going back to Bukele, they just signed a huge deal, the Corium team, with Bukele to create a huge seed fund to turn El Salvador into the Silicon Valley of Latin America.
Wouldn't
So
that be
Bukele
nice?
himself, they partnered with the Core Nest, which is the venture capital part of Corium, and so they're going to be deploying something like $20 million in El Salvador, and the whole infrastructure is going to run on Corium.
Hmm.
So that's huge. And in addition, around that time period, the same time that they met with Bukele, Bukele met with Trump, like the same week. And part of what the Trump admin announced was that they were going to be working closely with El Salvador on tokenization, specifically tokenization. And this is who El Salvador is partnering with for tokenization. So if you connect the dots, to me, it seems like the US is watching. They're going to see how this plays out in El Salvador with the Corium team. And if it's a green flag, I think that has a very good chance of getting implemented into the United States as well. So huge connections.
Yeah. Now, I don't know how much of the letter Q you believe in, the 17th letter in the alphabet, right? But did you see what happened last night with Donald Trump posting?
No.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. All the different memes. Yeah.
Oh,
That was
he's
crazy.
reposting. He's reposting. You see my screen?
Yep. Yep.
Treason and sedition. He's reposting all of these. I think some of them
Yep.
are his own original ones.
And this is where a lot of funds could come out too, like these tribunals, these seized assets. I think that there's probably trillions, if not quadrillions of dollars in stolen assets that could be the way which we get this redistribution to the people. And how are you going to redistribute it? You're not going to do it with a paper check. You're not going to do it in a Chase account that is also tied to the Epstein files. You're going to do it through crypto. Yeah. You're going to do it through a crypto like XRP or Corium.
We have never seen Donald Trump go this wild, though. Donald Trump has gone wild as of last night at 7:38 p.m. Look at this. I mean, he reposted all of these.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Unbelievable, man. Nothing can stop what's coming. Okay. Then he posts this guy over here. Okay. He reposts this one. Okay. Time to obliterate the deep state. And it says, do it with the letter Q on his lapel. And Donald Trump is the one that reposted this.
Yeah, dude. I know people still aren't. It's not clocking for some people still.
Let me ask you a question. Is mainstream media having a field day with this yet or no?
I have not even seen any media reporting on it, but I assume they want to stay as far away from it as possible at this point.
Oh, yeah. They don't want to shed any light on this. And then he reposted this one. TikTok.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, like, hello.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's so in your face at this point. Like, you can't deny it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Totally. I'm having a blast with it. I must have sent it manually to like 500 people. I posted it on enough Telegram groups to constitute 120,000 people. And I think I had probably a major effect of it going pretty viral. But you're right. I think the mainstream media is not going to touch you with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, I mean, there's all those instances when during the election they were probing him about Q. Like, I saw a compilation of him the other day of every time he was asked about Q, and he leaves it open ended. He's like, he doesn't shut it down. No. And then after that, they kind of stopped asking the Q. They didn't want to dive into it anymore.
Yeah, well, he's the ultimate maestro. I got friends of mine thinking that we're going to go into the seven kingdoms. What do you think about that? That he's going to be the last president? 7 kingdoms. The planet's going to be divided into 7 kingdoms. And
it's crazy you say that because just yesterday on my Conscious Crypto Academy coaching call that we do every week, one of my members was saying that he got this vision that there's going to be 7 nations and that it's going to play it. So that's spot on. And what I've seen too is that I think, with Trump talking about 51st state, Canada, he talked about 52nd state, Mexico at one point. I can see a situation where who knows how long, maybe in the next decade, where we could have many different countries globally wanting to join the United States, especially if we bring in Canada and Mexico. And we have people that were previously under the deep state's rule joining the US, but it could work out to where there could be these 7 kingdoms and he's, maybe they're like provinces or territories or something like that, where they're not under direct US, but it's like there's an alliance there. So, yeah, I could see it.
So he tweets out about the med beds. You saw that artificial intelligence piece that they created.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That was not a coincidence. That he's basically planting the seed to pay attention. It's coming, as far as I'm concerned, as far as you're concerned, I'm sure as well. And so maybe at some point Donald Trump goes inside the med bed, comes out the other side. He's 52 years old. He's rocking his buff, whatever. And he goes for, 20, 30 more years, what have you, and he's handling everything from Buenos Aires to Canada, right? That would be the one kingdom, right? And that's why they're saying there's no more presidents, that Donald Trump is the last president, because the only way you become the next king, if you're a king, you can also appoint one of your sons. Which if that's the case, I would love for him to appoint Eric Trump. I think Eric Trump is ready to go. I think his wife is a perfect first lady. What do you think? Is that
You
a
know, I could,
possibility?
I think Eric, and obviously Eric's the big crypto guy in the family too. You know, his fortune has surpassed Don Jr.'s because of the crypto initiatives they're doing. And
Right.
then, Barron's a big part of that. I think Barron, maybe after Eric or at some point, I have a feeling Barron's going to play a big role in, what's going to go on in the future of the United States and the world.
IngersollLockwood.com.
Exactly, man. Exactly. Yeah.
Time
I
travel,
mean, it's,
time travelers.
yep. Yep. Too many coincidences with all that. Like it just, and if you go, the Ingersoll Lockwood website, like they lay it all out that, this has been going on. This has been a plan for the last like 150 years since Ingersoll Lockwood was alive, that they had either some kind of technology or some kind of contact or some way to access this information. And those books are in the Library of Congress. Like it's crazy.
I own technology that you would have to get abducted by a UFO to experience the technology that I slept in last night, that I slept in the
Yeah.
night before, and the night before, and the night before, and I feel amazing. I mean, the
Yeah.
technology permeates inside the room. Does it go out the walls a little bit? Yeah, that was misinformation, but it doesn't go out 22 miles and everybody's going to, no. But the machines have to speak to each other. That's why the monitors are facing each other within 1,000th of an inch of calibration. But the reality is, when you're inside that scalar wave technology, which is remnants of Nikolai Tesla technology, you feel amazing. And the world will soon
Yep.
find out that frequency, sound, and vibration are going to be the new medicine. I got people coming down that have stage 4 C and ends with an R. Okay. I can't say that word because somebody thinks they own the language. You know what I'm talking about. And they're coming down because the doctors have basically said, you're done. Go home, get your affairs in order. You're not going to make it past next weekend. And they're coming down from North Carolina. They're passing up a gazillion of centers because we're 70% cheaper than everybody else. We didn't make it because we want to make a gazillion dollars. Can we still make a gazillion dollars if we fill up all the chairs? The answer is yes. But we do it on volume. We don't do it on the backs of the little people. We want this to be affordable to the masses, and we are. Okay. So our menu, if you look at our menu, our packages are dirt cheap. I mean, they go down to like $9 an hour for crying out loud. $9 an hour. Can you afford that?
Yeah, that's
$9 an
awesome.
hour. That's cheap. Okay.
Yeah.
To allow your body to heal the body. Okay. It's the body that does all the heavy lifting. So wild stuff. It's here, man. We got the plasma med bed. Same thing. The scalar wave, noble gas, and plasma gas. All three in one. Amazing stuff. I mean, literally, you stay in there for an entire month, and there's maybe not too much wrong with you. I mean, you live on planet Earth. You're being poisoned with the air, the food you eat, the clothes you wear, everything's poisonous, right? But the reality is you stay in there for an entire month. You leave there, you're glowing in the dark, bro. You're glowing.
That's awesome, man.
You're
I gotta
glowing
get
in
in
the
and try
dark.
it out. I haven't tried it yet.
You got. Well, when the next time you come down for the Quantum Summit, when we announce it, that XRP is $50 or $100, well, in that range, I'm going to announce the final Quantum Summit. He's probably going to be not probably. He will be one of the speakers on stage with a panel, and
Thanks.
it's going to be fantastic. And you'll
Sweet.
get to come down maybe a couple of days early. I'll have all the speakers come down early, and I'll let you guys stay in there pro bono. This way you can experience it, and this way you can tell the world what we have.
For sure. I'm excited for it. Stoked. Got to get in there and try
brother,
it
it
out.
was such a pleasure
I
having
haven't
you.
even been to Florida yet, man. I've never been to Florida in my life, so I got to get there.
It's a nice place. It's my second favorite place in the world. My first place is California. And vote for Louis Herms, LouisHermsForCali.com. All right. But anyway, talk to my wife and let's get you scheduled at least once a month, minimum. Seriously. I really enjoyed this. And I know the audience probably.
Yeah, you been on the channel?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
All right.
That'd be awesome.
And if you want to get me on your channel, I'll come on your channel as well.
For sure. Let's do it.
Sounds good.
Quick shameless plug for myself. If anybody wants to work with me, my Conscious Crypto Academy, I'll have Mel put the links down below. But, we help people that are totally brand new to crypto, or if you're in it a little bit, you got some XRP, some XLM, but you kind of want to go deeper. Everything we were talking about with Corium, Sologenic, we teach you all of that. And we have tutorials, videos, makes it super easy. We've got a community of over 150 people We meet every week. So like every Sunday we get on a video call, a Zoom call, and we have a class and we talk about updates. We talk about what's going on in the world. We do Q&A, and we've got a private Telegram group where we're chatting every day. And our whole intention is, the spiritual side of it, that like we're building this international network. We got people all over the world. And the goal is that as this abundance really flows in and we become millionaires and billionaires, we're going to use this network to co-create and put our skills and our passions and our, what we're good at together, and use our mutual networks to co-create some really cool things for humanity. So that's what we're all about.
Fantastic. Hey guys, make sure you follow him. You got all his information will be down below for sure. Thank you.
Yep.
Stay behind a little bit.
Thanks for having me on, man.